Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's a great tribute, I think, to my honourable friend the Minister that he's got the bill in a form which is far better than it was at second reading, and it's so much improved that there's not going to be a division on third reading. But that doesn't mean that everybody on these benches is satisfied with all the content of the bill, although albeit it's significantly improved. I recall, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the enthusiasm with which the Conservative benches greeted the third reading of the Housing Bill in 1988. That is the bill which is being substantially amended by tonight's proceedings. And that bill was a fundamental supply-side reform. It was at the heart of the Thatcher revolution, which transformed the private rented sector from one where nobody wanted to engage and which was shrinking, and where young barristers like myself at that stage were making a living trying to defend the interests of landlords who'd found themselves haplessly on the wrong end of that legislation. We've moved a long way since then, and one of the essential elements of the 88 legislation was the short hold. The short hold was a privately arranged agreement between a landlord and a tenant that for a period the tenant would be able to have exclusive possession of a property rented by a landlord. During that period, neither the landlord nor the tenant would be able to renege on that agreement. The rent would remain the same. The landlord wouldn't be able to say, I need to get repossession of that property for any reason at all. And that short hold principle is one which it seems to me is still missing from this bill. There was an amendment which would have brought back something like a short hold provision in this bill, so that there was privity of contract between a landlord and a tenant who wished to enter into an agreement in relation to their property, in the same way as you can agree with somebody to rent a car or a caravan. And that principle of privity of contract, which is fundamental, I think, to Conservative beliefs, that was enshrined in an amendment which was deemed to be a wrecking amendment. I hope, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that that amendment, which was signed by over 50 colleagues, will be resurrected in the other place where the rules are different, and that the principles enunciated in that will be able to be taken forward, and that the bill will be able to be further improved in the other place, because we need to ensure that we support Conservative legislation. We need to ensure that we support legislation which is designed to increase the size of the rented sector rather than shrink the private rented sector. And what I fear is going to be the inevitable consequence of this, and we've already seen a bit of that in Scotland, is that because this bill is going to reduce the supply of private rented accommodation, the cost of private rented accommodation is going to go up faster than the rate of inflation, and then the same sort of people who've been campaigning in the alliance to which the honourable gentleman opposite was referring, they will be saying, stop there, we must have some rent controls. And price controls over rents, because one set of regulations creates another set of regulations. And then we will be back to where we were back in 1977. And that consequence, it seems to me, is likely to follow and flow from what we are approving tonight. And I just hope that it will be able to be amended in their Lordship's House, so that the supply-side reforms, which are so fundamental in the 88 legislation, will be able to be carried forward, and we will be able to give fresh confidence to people who are thinking about entering the private rented market, or give them fresh confidence not to withdraw from the market as they are doing at the moment in increasing numbers, because it's not helping any of our constituents who are trying to get rented accommodation if that rented accommodation continues to escalate in price as it is at the moment. So I hope that if there is going to be a response to this very short debate, we'll be able to have a guarantee that under no Conservative government will we ever have any system of rent controls, and that I hope that the government will be able to assure us that the consequence of this legislation is that we will be able to increase the size of the private rented sector rather than diminish it further. Mr. Deputy Speaker, may I conclude by congratulating my honourable friend for Totnes on having waged not a one-man campaign, because behind the scenes there was a very large cohort of people who were very supportive of his amendments, and as a result of those amendments the bill has been improved significantly. One of his amendments which wasn't selected, that's still in my view unfinished business, but we shouldn't shirk from congratulating my honourable friend for having carried this campaign forward so effectively and successfully, and we hope that when this bill comes back from the other place, and maybe it will take another year and a half like it is since it was first presented, and that may be the other side of a general election. Some of us may hope that it will be better if we don't have this bill on the statute book by the time of the general election, but that's another story. I won't go into that now. But whenever the bill comes back, I hope it will be in an improved form, and even more of the amendments supported on this side, put forward by my honourable friend for Totnes, will be included in the text of the legislation.